This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Two leading Ethiopian opposition leaders and 22 others face terrorism charges over June violence. Iran rallies the rest of the world to unite against the United States after Washington unilaterally reimposes sanctions. And global COVID-19 cases surpass 30 million, with nearly 1 million deaths. Hello and a warm welcome to Africa Live on CGTN. I'm Lindy Mtongano in Nairobi. Also coming up this hour. U.S. President Donald Trump says he approves a deal in principle to keep TikTok running in America. And sporting action in full swing in Egypt as the country hosts its national basketball and handball league finals. We start the hour in Uganda, where firefighters have been battling a blaze at the main building of Makerere University. Local media reported the fire started shortly after midnight. The building, also known as the Ivory Tower, is one of the university's oldest structures. It houses several offices, including the university's main hall and the Vice-Chancellor's office. Let's get more on this now from CGTN correspondent Michael Baleke, joining us from the capital, Kampala. Michael, what is the situation now at Makerere University?
Hello, Lindy. I'm just standing right in front of the building that is usually called the Ivory Tower at Makerere. This is the building that caught fire last night just after midnight. Just a few minutes ago, about 20 fire trucks left the area. But we could see some smoke still actually up on the tower. Much of the building has actually been consumed. The roof has been decimated completely. Police have launched an investigation into the cause of the fire that has ravaged this building, which broke out in the wee hours of Sunday morning. And this main building is unique because it's a unique 20th century architecture, and it has been a landmark of Makerere University for years. It was built about 1938 and completed in 1941. It's actually a UNESCO heritage site, the second that has gutted fire after the Kasubi tombs, that is about 2010. The building was constructed with funds from the British, of course, from Colonial Development Fund during the World War II. And the university, of course, was about to open its doors next month after a long break. But now, as you can see, much of that building, which has the Vice-Chancellor's office, which has the main hall, and of course, the offices that got burned, including the accounts office, much of it has been destroyed, and police says a lot of property has been burnt down.
And of course, Michael, police will be investigating, but have authorities given any indication thus far as to what might have triggered the blaze?
The police fire department here has told us that it believes the fire started from the roof, maybe from an electricity shock, but that we don't know until investigations. A group of investigators is already in here combing the area to find any links and any clues. But of course, what we know is that it's spread through the two floors, the floor that houses the records office and the accounts department. And of course, this is an area where you'll find a lot of paperwork, which must have fueled the fumes. The main building, of course, like I said, it also has a printery. You know, that printery, there's a lot of paper there in that printery. So we're looking at a lot of fire having come from there too, and a lot of stuff destroyed there. But police investigators say that investigations are ongoing right now to ascertain the cause of the fire. But the university chancellor says that they are planning to restore the building to its historic state as soon as the investigators are out of here. Lindy?
Michael Baleke, thank you so much, joining us there live from Kampala, Uganda. Let's turn to news now from Ethiopia. Leading opposition leaders such as Jawar Mohammed and Bekele Gerba are among 24 people charged with terrorism. The group is expected to appear in court on Monday. The charges against them could carry life imprisonment sentences. The charges relate to violence that erupted after the killing of popular singer Hachalu Hundessa in June this year. In the days that followed his death, over 230 people died in inter-ethnic violence and clashes with security forces. Well, our reporter Girum Chale is following this story for us from the Ethiopian capital of Addis Ababa. He joins us now live. Girum, to begin with, tell us more about these two leading opposition figures and the charges they face.
Well, Lindy, the two political leaders, opposition party members and leaders are prominent in the country, especially when it comes to their political struggle for the perhaps rights of the Oromo people. Jawar Mohammed, for instance, is an expert Ethiopian American, now turned Ethiopian again, according to source we have, who has been a prominent, a well-heard activist through social media, has been garnering support for his ideology and perhaps to put the former government down by bringing Oromo youth together, which are called Kairos. And now Jawar has turned himself from activist to a political leader and has joined a political party. Bekele Gerba is the same kind of a caliber person who's been in the Ethiopian political scene for a long time and has been imprisoned several times as well. So these two people have been important and were expected to run for the upcoming elections in this country. Now, as you've said, the charge against them will be heard officially, and the copies of this charge will be given to them on Monday, which include terrorism charge, instigating violence against one religion to the other, one ethnic group to the other, and also they are responsible, according to the charge, of the killings of many people due to the violence that erupted after the assassination of Hachalu Hundessa, the very well-known Oromo singer, in June. So this has been, one of the most watched stories, even in local media, and so many people have been following these stories as these two and the other 22 people have been, the movers and the shakers when it comes to the Ethiopian opposition political movement over the past, perhaps 1 year.
Girum, of course, we know that Hundessa's death in June this year stirred a lot of emotions. What's the mood like now as these two prominent opposition leaders are facing such serious charges? Well,
I can tell you that the feeling is mixed. Some people are of the opinion that justice must be served, and they must be held accountable if there is any criminal activity involved after the June assassination of Hachalu Hundessa himself. So some people are of the idea that the justice serving system should be expedited, and it should also deliver the outcome as soon as possible. And others, on the other hand, of the opinion that the government is taking advantage of this situation to perhaps move away with these people, pushing them aside, using pretext of instigating violence and other things. So the feelings are mixed in this country, but at the end of the day, the government and the Attorney General say that they have been patient, especially the government of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. They have been patient for a long time to widen the political arena of the country, which has been narrow, according to some source, for the past many years. And their patience has now run out. And in this country, the rule of law must be respected. And that's why we're doing this. And there's no political idea behind imprisoning these people or questioning them in front of the court. So the mixed feeling is one thing, but we should also wait and see what's going to be the outcome of the court proceedings in the coming few days and what kind of impact it has in the Ethiopian political landscape, Lindy.
Indeed, and certainly we'll be keeping a close eye on developments as those court proceedings get underway on Monday. Thank you so much, Girum Chale, live there from Addis Ababa. Now, in international news, the United States is unilaterally claiming that all UN sanctions on Iran are back in force. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has threatened punishment for those who violate them. Pompeo said a conventional arms embargo on Iran must not be allowed to expire in October. The move is expected to have little international support. Last month, the UN Security Council rejected a bid by Washington to bring back the sanctions. Well, meanwhile, Iran on Sunday called on the rest of the world to unite against the US's reckless actions after Washington unilaterally declared those UN sanctions against the Islamic Republic were back in force. The words were, "We expect the international community and all countries in the world to stand against these reckless actions by the regime," in the White House. That was the words of Foreign Ministry spokesperson Saeed Khatibzadeh, and that was in a news conference in Tehran. Well, CGTN's Sarbas Nazari has more on the reaction to the U.S. announcement.
There is, in fact, some mood of victory here, indeed, at least at the PR level. Iranian authorities believe the Council's opposition to the U.S. push has marked what they call the worst ever U.S. isolation in the history of the United Nations. You know, the Supreme Leader's top international aide called it a propaganda stunt. Foreign Minister Zarif has been actively advancing the legal argument, trying to convince every side that what the Trump administration is seeking has no acceptable standing. And we do know that Zarif and his team have had a very hectic couple of months, and despite the coronavirus restrictions and regular diplomacy, they have been exhausting all channels, shuttling among different camps, lobbying with China, Russia, India, Europeans, all trying to push back the United States. However, the fact of the matter is, on the ground, is there's this growing public fear that U.S. sanctions may indeed work, and they talk. I mean, people talk from past experience. In the past 3 years, since the U.S. walked away from the JCPOA and reimposed its secondary sanctions, what ordinary Iranians have felt has been the pinch of it. I mean, inflation has been skyrocketing, the national currency has nosedived, and people's pockets and purchasing power have only dwindled. So these are concerns on the ground, but the Iranian officials are certain that the attempt by Washington will be definitely doomed to failure, as they call it.
Well, the Russian Foreign Ministry has also condemned the United States' actions, saying Washington's move lacks legal authority. In a statement, Russia, which is a key Iranian ally, said the U.S. sanctions are illegitimate and accused the U.S. of putting on a performance. Moscow added that it fully supports the nuclear accord. And in a letter to the UN Security Council, France, Germany and the UK also said that unilateral U.S. sanctions would have no legal effect. And turning to the coronavirus pandemic now, the number of confirmed COVID-19 cases worldwide has surpassed 30 million. A database by Johns Hopkins University also shows the death toll has now topped 955,000. The US, India and Brazil remain the most affected countries. The WHO says a vaccine is critical to ending the pandemic, while also calling for extra precautions to better control the virus. In Tunisia, 450 medics and paramedics have tested positive for the coronavirus. That's according to the country's COVID-19 task force. One doctor and one pharmacist died this week in the latest setback for frontline health workers in the fight against the pandemic. Health agencies say infections have spread rapidly since the country's borders reopened on the 27th of June. CGTN's Adnan Chouachi has that story.
The Ministry of Health has warned Tunisians that the country has entered the third phase of its COVID-19 outbreak. Fawzi Mehdi pointed out that the death rate from the virus has not exceeded 1%, while the average age of those who died is 75 years.
I call on Tunisian citizens to coexist with the virus without fear, while respecting the health instructions and hygiene standards. The next stage requires vigilance, caution, and the application of the health protocol in public places.
The minister has announced the opening of Al Manza Field Hospital. This sports facility has 80 beds equipped with ventilators and 4 ICU beds.
The hospital is ready to accommodate patients from the very first signs of infection. The number of ICU beds during this period meets the needs without exceeding the accommodation capacity. We still need to overcome coordination problems towards proper bed distribution of patients.
The national coordinator for the anti-COVID-19 program and spokesperson for the health ministry stressed that the number of infected medical and paramedical staff is likely to increase in the country.
450 medics and paramedics have tested positive for COVID-19. The increase is in light of community transmissions of the virus due to the spread of active outbreaks in many areas. Epidemiological investigations showed that most infections caused by the disease took place outside hospitals.
The National Observatory of New and Emerging Diseases revealed that several medics and paramedics contracted the virus outside hospitals. The infected individuals later spread the coronavirus inside a number of health facilities. The Ministry of Health is carrying out massive screening to isolate infected medics, paramedics and patients. The active outbreaks discovered at some health facilities are currently under control, while ongoing investigations are carried out to prevent the spread of the virus. Adnan Shawishi, CGTN, Tunis.
Meanwhile, the President of the United Nations General Assembly, Tijani Muhammad Band, says cooperation between countries is important, particularly in ensuring an effective COVID-19 vaccine is made available to all.
I think one is to continue the scientific collaboration among scientists around the world, and to also have the understanding that if vaccines or other therapeutics that have been found that are effective, let there be clear understanding that they are effective for everyone, and that it's clear that there can be no solution to the pandemic on the basis of nation states. And this is important. And I think more and more, this understanding of the connection between the scientific community to work together to create, to have vaccines, and to also find means of getting the vaccines available to those who need them, regardless of their circumstances, I think is absolutely important.
You're watching Africa Live. We'll be right back after this short break. Africa is a continent of diversity, with varied climates and enchanting geography, and a people so distinct, but with a shared enduring spirit. We are at the heart of the continent to bring you the untold stories. Let's have a look. We celebrate Africa as it shapes its own destiny.
Adnan Shawishi, Tunis, Cairo,
Juba, Ethiopia, Tanzania.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
I try to not let it affect me, but there are days when it does. I'm a human being, and to see patients in a hospital bed and their family members are not there, there's no one there to hold their hand, that human touch, you know?
I just hope everyone can remember that the situation is not permanent and that everything will get better eventually.
Thailand's largest pro-democracy protest in years has ended peacefully. Demonstrators have handed over a petition demanding the reform of the monarchy in front of the Grand Palace in Bangkok. Tony Cheng has more.
Well, the student protests have now gone. The stage has been packed up, but the students have left one indelible mark here, set into the ground in concrete, a plaque commemorating the moment when Thailand moved from an absolute monarchy to a constitutional one. And that is a very definite point that we're now seeing in these protests. The issue of the monarchy is becoming more and more prominent. Earlier today, after camping on this ground overnight, the students marched not to Government House but to the Grand Palace, where they submitted a petition for 10 points to reform the monarchy. And that's going to be increasingly a problem for the government as they react to these protests, which have built and built. In the last couple of months, they've gone from several thousand to tens of thousands to, some are suggesting, over 100,000 here in the last 24 hours. And that puts a lot of pressure on the government. They haven't yet conceded to any of the protesters' points, but we see more and more groups being pulled into the fold. Older groups, red shirts from previous protests, other people who are disaffected with the economic situation in Thailand. This is definitely a movement which is gaining momentum. We don't yet know how the government's going to react. They say they understand the calls for constitutional reform, but nothing of any real substance has happened yet. What we've seen here over the last 24 hours suggests that that pressure is only going to increase. Tony Cheng, CGTN, Bangkok.
The Somali president has appointed a new prime minister, Mohamed Hussein Roble. The former UN ILO staff member is expected to form a new government in the coming days. His appointment comes after federal and state leaders agreed on a new electoral model following months of a political stalemate. The engineer by profession, who is new to politics, has less than 5 months to lead the country to elections. Somalia's parliament is expected to approve his government.
The biggest task awaiting the new Prime Minister is overseeing the realization of peaceful presidential and parliamentary elections in the country, which will be a great historic opportunity for his government if the ongoing process towards the polls succeed.
The new Prime Minister has a maximum of 6 months period with a huge task ahead. He needs to strongly focus on preparing the country towards the election, improve security in the capital by removing the various roadblocks which were key points to the ousted previous government.
The new Prime Minister comes at the right time when the leaders of the federal government and the regional states were discussing key issues in the country, and the citizens were awaiting good news.
Egypt has announced another ancient archaeological find in its western desert. 20 colored caskets have been found in the Saqqara area. Studies are underway to identify who the remains inside the caskets belong to. CGTN's Adel Al-Makhraoui spoke to Mustafa Waziri, the head of the archaeological team that made the discovery.
An Egyptian archaeological team led by Mustafa Waziri, the Secretary General of the Supreme Council of Antiquities, has made a great Egyptological discovery. Their excavations at the Saqqara area, that's west of Cairo, found a shaft leading to an old Egyptian burial site. The team found several chambers and have so far unearthed 20 well-preserved coffins.
We started just a couple of weeks ago, and we were really lucky. We found the beginning of a shaft with a lot of debris, of course. We start taking this debris out. We found that the shaft is almost 10 meters depth, a lot of dusts. We start cleaning, step by step. We found a lot of objects, especially statues, wooden statues of the god Bitah Sukr, and he was the main god of this area.
The coffins are believed to be from the 26th dynasty and are estimated to be around 2,500 years old. Time was kind to them, preserving their bright colors and keeping the wooden shell intact. So mummies inside are expected to be in great shape.
We're still studying to figure out, to realize more and more and more information about those guys. But according to the condition of the wooden coffins, about the final and the perfect colors, paintings, hieroglyphic, so it seems to me that those guys, they were high-rank people. Till now, I cannot tell. Were they high priests? Were they judges? Were they nobles? I don't know yet.
Because the discovery is very recent, the coffins must be left for weather conditioning before they're opened. Waziri says they're expecting to unearth more findings as their excavations at this site continue. The iconic Djoser Step Pyramid marks the desert site of the Saqqara area, the necropolis of ancient Egypt. In recent years, this archaeological site has witnessed great discoveries of well-preserved ancient Egyptian treasures. Adil Al-Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
And to South Africa now, where International Coastal Cleanup Day is being commemorated with activities along the country's coastline. In Cape Town, thousands descended on the city's famed Hout Bay beach with refuse bags in hand on a mission to rid the shore of harmful trash. CGTN's Travis Andrews has the details.
With a coastline that stretches more than 2,800 kilometers, South Africa boasts some of the best beaches in the world. Many of them are situated in the Cape region. But they often need a thorough cleanup, and these people are using this year's International Coastal Cleanup Day to do just that. Over the years, the annually commemorated day has galvanized a movement of concerned beachgoers who've come to play their part in clearing the pollution littering the shoreline.
I think what's really amazing about today is that it reminds us that we should actually be cleaning up every day or being really mindful of our waste. So it's really just the international reminder of collaborate, get together, be outside, and let's protect our planet and look after our ocean. Because everything that ends up in the ocean, of course, comes from land.
Ocean pollution has become a source of concern as the sea has become a dumping ground for all types of waste. That has harmed the marine life. With the whale migration season underway and COVID-19 a new reality, this year's socially distant beach cleanup brought a sense of urgency, especially given the shape the river systems are in.
They are polluted, especially if you start looking. The average person who drives past and doesn't see it. When you start going around, you can actually pick up a bag like this of stuff in 50 square meters. And so they are very polluted, especially our rivers, which we ignore.
The old and young join in on the day's coastal spring cleaning, and the volunteers made quick work of the difficult task. From plastic bags to shoe soles, styrofoam boxes to earbuds, just about all types of trash is ending up in the ocean. There's one common item though that seems to be quite widespread.
Most of the times we find straws. Like when people drink their cool drinks, they just drop straws around. When they have something to eat, some K lights on the beach all the time. It's hectic most of the time.
Unfortunately, you find lots of straws, bottle caps, pieces of plastic and box ties for supplies and things like that, and regular lollipop sticks, chip packets.
In total, more than 50 bags of trash were removed on this single cleanup and ended up where they actually belong, bound for the recycling station, and more importantly, never to make the journey back into the ocean. Travis Andrews, CGTN, Cape Town.
Here in Kenya, the county government of Nairobi has been making efforts to reclaim green spaces in the capital. The efforts include cleaning up littered parks and working with former homeless people to maintain them. CGTN's Wanja Mungai tells us more about the urban environmental conservation exercise.
Meet Simon Bugwa, a former street boy. He scavenged dump sites in the Kenyan capital of Nairobi for a living. But today, he's a green guard here at the Mishuki Memorial Park in the heart of the city.
I was a street boy when the Michuki Memorial Park was introduced. We got casual jobs here, and now we get an income, however small. We are able to make ends meet. In this park, I take care of the tree nurseries, I slash the grasses around, and that is my assignment in the park. I maintain the park.
Previously, the park had mounds of trash and was home to criminal gangs. This made the area a security threat until March, when the country started recording coronavirus cases. The Nairobi County government decided to restore this green space to allow for social distancing.
It was dumping site during those days. Everybody is doing business, bad business here. They come up together with those boys, these boys, now they are good people. Now there's a good part for everyone to visit, foreigners to come and visit, to come and enjoy yourselves. And we are not stopping this. We are going to maintain this standard until we meet all the standards for the park and for the forest, for the environment.
The conservation efforts are also meant to mitigate climate change, which the United Nations Environmental Programme defines as the most threatening issue of the 21st century. Pollution in African countries like Kenya has not significantly contributed to global warming. But here, tree planting and clearing dump sites are just some of the crucial efforts to mitigate and adapt to the effects of climate change amidst a global pandemic.
We have people with pre-existing conditions and respiratory illnesses caused by emissions and other pollutants. It's critical because of the clean air, guarding against air pollution. Walking and cycling are particularly beneficial, especially in this pandemic season where public transport has been restricted by social distancing measures.
With the help of people like Simon, the park is transforming into a healthy ecosystem now, acting as an oasis in the concrete jungle. Wanja Mungai, CGTN.
Recapping your top headlines this hour. In Ethiopia, opposition leaders Jawar Mohammed and Bekele Gerba are among 24 people charged with terrorism. The group is expected to appear in court on Monday. The charges against them could carry a life imprisonment sentence. The charges are related to violence that erupted after the killing of popular singer Hachalu Hundessa in June. The United States is unilaterally claiming that all UN sanctions on Iran are back in force. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has threatened punishment for those who violate them. The number of confirmed COVID-19 cases worldwide has surpassed 30 million. A database by Johns Hopkins University also shows the death toll has now topped 955,000. The United States, India and Brazil remain the most affected countries. Those are your top headlines this hour. And coming up in your business news. U.S. President Donald Trump says he approves a deal in principle to keep TikTok running in America. And anxiety grips Zimbabwe's black landowners amid the impending return of some white farmers.
This has taken me completely out of my depth, but at the same time, it's exciting. It's new, it's different, it's a challenge.
It's really exciting.
There's more to this place than just glorious landscapes. There's more to it than just, say, Table Mountain or glorious, endless salt flats. There's more to it than countries that are home to some of the deepest mines in the world. There is so much more to this place, even if it is home to some of the finest diamonds on the planet. It is the sheer diversity of the people who call Southern Africa home and the relentless drive to make it a better place that make it so special. And we know that because this too is home. No one knows Southern Africa like we do. CGTN, see the difference.
Business news now, and U.S. President Donald Trump says he approves in principle a deal that will allow video sharing platform TikTok to continue its American operations. Edith Tianshan has more.
There's still so much we don't know about this agreement between TikTok and Oracle. We do know that for over a week now, these two companies had reached a tentative agreement, but still there are many questions about how exactly we got here. I mean, especially within the tech industry, many people are still surprised that Microsoft, which was considered the strongest bidder all along, got rejected from this deal, and instead a smaller and less experienced company like Oracle landed on this massive deal. From the way Donald Trump is talking about this deal, it's really all about politics. He's emphasizing the fact that this will create new opportunities, it will protect U.S. interests. He's almost as if he's trying to appeal to his voter base and sort of portray this agreement as his latest achievement. Speaking to the press on Saturday, this is what he had to say.
TikTok is moving along. We're dealing with Oracle, and we're dealing with, as a combination, Walmart. Will most likely be incorporated in Texas. It'll be a brand new company. It will have nothing to do with any outside land, any outside country. It will have nothing to do with China.
This deal is far from being finalized because we are still waiting for the final word from the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States. That is the government agency that will be reaching a decision on whether or not it addresses the national security concerns here in the U.S. And one thing we also shouldn't forget is the fact that the Chinese government does also play a role, especially after having changed their export rules recently. They are concerned about how much of this secret algorithm that is really the secret sauce of this application, the Chinese company, may be sharing with the U.S. partners here. That is a major concern for China, obviously. And that's why in the weeks and months ahead, we are still waiting to hear from that final reaction from both governments. It is Tian Shan, CGTN, Los Angeles.
Some of Zimbabwe's black farmers are anxious and confused following the government's announcement that some white farmers may return to their previous parcels of land. Officials, however, insist that only a few of those who are forced out could return and that land reforms in the country are irreversible. CGTN's Farai Makutuya reports from Harare.
Half of the 22,000-hectare Forester estate that was protected by a bilateral treaty between Zimbabwe and Germany was occupied by dozens of black farmers during the land reform program. Some of them are now anxious about their future here.
I am surprised to hear that Forester can repossess this land. And to tell the truth, my colleagues have talked about offer letters and other things, but here, the big word is that we are utilizing land. We produce maize here, we send to the GMB, we produce tobacco to different companies, but I know that tobacco is supporting government in terms of foreign currency, as much as we know. So I don't expect the government to say to us, you must go back home.
The farmers who occupied this land did so back in 2002. Since then, they've raised their families here, built their homes, worked the land and developed their farms from scratch. And so for them, this is the only home they know. They're adamant that they won't move.
The bilateral agreement has nothing to do with us. All we know is that we were given this land by our government and told we would be here forever.
The government insists that former landowners can only return where feasible. It's agreed to pay $3.5 billion in compensation to the others for improvements on the land. But that constitutionally provided payoff is being challenged in court.
We believe that it is overcompensation which does not take into account the fundamental requirements of Section 72, subsection 7, that originally this land was stolen through violence, through robbery, and developed through slave labor.
It's hoped the compensation will bring closure to the contentious issue.
You couldn't get significant investment on farms that had conflict. But if you remove that conflict, obviously it creates the opportunity for people to go back on that land and make it productive. By opening up the space and investment in this sector, I think we can begin to see agriculture booming, and if it does, as you know, the multiplier effect on the rest of the economy benefits everyone.
The agricultural sector is the largest employer. It supplies 60% of industrial raw materials and accounts for over 40% of exports. Farai Mwakutuya, CGTN, Harare, Zimbabwe.
Kenya's national carrier, Kenya Airways, says it will need at least $500 million if it is to stay afloat. The carrier's chief executive, Alan Kilavuka, says the company's revenue in the first half of the financial year dropped by almost 50%, plunging the airline deeper into loss-making territory. CGTN's Robert Nagila has the details.
Like most African airlines, Kenya Airways was already in the red over the past few years, but it had a plan to get back to profitability. That's until the COVID-19 pandemic disrupted the industry. The carrier was forced to suspend both domestic and international flights, resuming international operations in August. When CGTN caught up with the airline's chief executive in August, it was clear the airline was struggling.
Since late March, when we stopped flying, up to now, we have probably lost between around about $100 million. When we project to the end of the year, based on the demand that we see today, we will lose about $400 million of revenue.
Kilavuka now says the airline urgently needs a bailout of at least $500 million. Last month, the airline began restructuring its business as it tries to remain competitive.
We cannot keep an airline at 100% when the demand is only 50%. And that is why we need to restructure the airline. So restructure just, the assets, restructure the operations itself, how we operate. And then, of course, unfortunately, even for employees. And like you said, it's a very painful thing to do.
Before COVID-19, Kenya Airways was flying to 55 destinations globally, carrying 4 million passengers annually. Since resuming international flights, it's now flying to about 30 destinations. Kilavuka wants the carrier, which is 49% state-owned, to be nationalized alongside the Kenya Airports Authority, which runs the Nairobi hub under a holding structure similar to Ethiopian Airlines. 60% of revenue at Nairobi's Jomo Kenyatta International Hub is generated by the carrier. Robert Nagila, CGTN, Nairobi, Kenya.
Well, that's where we leave your business news. Here's what's still ahead on the program. Coming up, South Africa considers creating theme parks to accommodate sensitivities about Apartheid-era statues.
The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Qanater, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
Colonial and Apartheid-era statues in South Africa are once again under the spotlight, with some people questioning their continued presence in public spaces. The country's Department of Arts and Culture has proposed creating cultural theme parks across the country where these statues and other heritage symbols may be honoured. CGTN's Travis Andrews tells us more.
The Rhodes Memorial is a monument that continues to polarize society, but its prominent position overlooking the Cape Town metropolis may not be for much longer. This is because the statue and many others associated with the colonial and apartheid era could be moved from the public eye. That's if the government moves ahead with plans to create special theme parks to hold and commemorate them. A consultative team led by the Department of Arts and Culture is steering the process. It will advise the government on the creation of the cultural theme parks after a full audit of all statues, symbols and monuments is done.
It's something that has happened in many societies when memorials are decommissioned and they are given an alternative home so that they can continue to be a place where they can be thought about, not a place prominently positioned where their task is to proclaim something to the society or to be celebrated.
The statues are expected to be moved in a prescribed manner, as their preservation is protected under current legislation. The process also has to be reviewed by the cabinet before getting the green light. It's not just statues and monuments that will be affected. The names of some streets and public places are also expected to be changed.
Precisely what such a nation-building theme park will be, I don't know. But there is an opportunity for us to rethink what we mean by a monument, to move away from the celebratory framework of the heroic monument, who's either going to be a hero or a villain.
Theme parks for statues and monuments in Cape Town are not a new thing though, and the Long March to Freedom exhibition is a glimpse of what could be in store for those who've fallen from the public eye. For some Cape Townians, the statues are an important part of the mother city's history, and moving them will be akin to the sanitization of public spaces.
I don't think it's not a very good idea. I think we need to preserve some of our heritage. It's very, very important to the Heritage Society and the people of this province. And I don't think it's a good thing.
Now the younger generations will obviously learn about things, about the apartheid and what we've been through when it's in the public eye. So I don't think really, it's a good idea to sort of put it on one location as such.
For me, I would rather say it's much better to keep the statues instead of removing them, because at the end of the day, our kids need to see our past, they need to see our history. So if they can keep them instead of destroying them, that will be fine.
The statues of those who played a key role in South Africa's move towards a free and democratic society will continue to enjoy their prominence, including one of the late former President Nelson Mandela. Travis Andrews, CGTN, Cape Town.
And coming up in your sports news. Sporting action in full swing in Egypt as the country hosts its National Basketball and Handball League finals.